think we should just take turns,
Right.
so each person gets their question. So,
I have no question, so I guess.
Sasha?
All right. I have two. Which scientific school of thought do you belong to? Are you a logical positivist or a critical theorist? Or which one would you say you?
I don't belong to any scientific school of thought. I don't care for most scientists because they're in their narrow discipline. They don't touch the economy. They'll tell you about particulate behavior, light rays, and I don't understand why they don't touch the system. That's where the trouble is. I'm not interested in Mars or its oscillations. I want to know why they don't understand the way we're moving. We're moving toward destruction of humankind, the oceans, the atmosphere. I thought if they were real scientists, they'd get on that and let go of the other stuff for the time being. I do not identify with any school of thought as yet.
Okay. Second question. Who verifies your work besides you? That is to say, if you don't identify with the scientific community, who is then to verify your work?
Well, I don't think they're qualified because they've never done this type of work. It's like asking a priest to listen to Darwin, or the Jews trying to raise money in the Nazi Party for the B'nai B'rith. B'nai B'rith is a Jewish organization, and if Jews went to a Nazi party asking for funding to support the Jews, they'd never get it.
I don't understand the
Scientists
correlation.
that don't question the social system are not scientists to me.
Okay. Well, how about sociologists?
Most sociologists that I meet go along with it. They identify with it, only they don't know anything about it. They say, well, what is the Venus Project? And I explain it to them. Then they ask the same questions the average person would ask. They don't have any better or deeper inquiries so far.
Because they don't know?
They don't deal with it.
Okay.
They just don't know. They're just like any other person.
How do you define better or deeper inquiry?
By the questions they ask.
Yes, but what is a good one? What is a great one? What is
Good
a better
question.
one?
Who makes the decisions and how do you arrive at them? Does Jacques design all the cities? Does he submit those designs to architects to get their opinions? No, he doesn't. Because architects are mostly self-centered and their buildings express their ego, not social buildings, to make it more comfortable for people, to make life better for people. The cities have to be designed so people can get together and talk to one another. There has to be beautification, beautiful nature in the city. If people just move into a city and it doesn't interest them, it doesn't inspire them to even ask questions. Why is the city round? What's the matter with a linear city? Architects don't even know what the problem is. You ask anybody, what's the problem today? Well, it's hard to talk to people. I mean, you don't know how to talk to the average person. Is that what you mean? You have to know what they mean. So when a person says, I don't think your city will work, I can't do anything with that. If they say, all your traffic comes to a head and there's no way to get out of that, then I can do something.
Right.
But I can't do anything with, how do you know it will work? Do they really want to know or they want to win the argument?
Right.
I have to try to understand the grammar of motives.
Yes.
Whether the person is asking the question or whether they just want to be heard.
Yes.
I don't like your round cities, they're boring, I can't do anything with that. But if a person says, why is your city round, I can do something with that. Is there a place for improvement? Can the average person make recommendations? Yes, but not to me, they make them to a computer. So if they make a recommendation, the computer will answer in different ways. That's a good suggestion. We'll use it. Or that was done in 1927 in Brasilia. It didn't work.
Right. But what is the means of verification that you use?
You have to ask a question. How does your transportation work? What's the matter with a linear city?
Yes.
What is a city designed for? I don't want to be too far from the food shopping, and I don't want to drive 1 hour to your city to get food. I want to be nearby. If you spend 1 hour driving to work and 1 hour coming back, you're wasting your own time on the company. And if you buy certain clothing, and you shave, all that should be supplied by the city or the people you're working for. But if you dress and have your car serviced to get to the city, you're not earning enough to take care of your car, because you only use your car to go to work. And when it wears out, the city ought to pay for it.
And I agree.
So I believe that the whole city should be designed to serve the needs of the people that work there. No architect designs a fancy city to impress people. You design a city to serve the needs of the people.
Yes.
Now, I came up with a round city because if you work in the educational department, the housing is here. You can live here if you choose to. If you work in the agricultural department, you can live here, but you can actually live any place you want to. But if you live adjacent to where you work, you don't spend hours driving, a few minutes to get to work. But if this is a series of buildings, we arrange the plans in an S pattern, so you can't see another building. You live in a beautiful garden. It's by arranging the plants in a system that gives you maximum security. Now, if he likes dogs, he's got 10 dogs, and they shit on your lawn, that's an intrusion. So if he wants 10 dogs, the dogs have to be conditioned not to leave his area, unless it's an intrusion. You want Edison to take his electric light to the gas company. There is nobody to investigate Edison. He came up with the electric light. When Sir Jakarta Bose went to the scientific convention in England and explained his work, they laughed at him.
Yes.
So he left and went back to India. Years later, they went to his lab and said, "You're right," and they knighted him. You can't take a new concept and meet with old people and ask them about their castles. They love their castles. People love this romantic architecture. There's nobody I can take to Venus Project in this town. I would level this city and keep some portions of it as museum cities.
I fully agree.
All my airplanes are different than the airplanes
How
in
he
existence.
put it to test was because he worked on this technically. He worked on aircraft. He doesn't just, it's just not some artistic notion. He can back it up technically how it works. And they're just not artist drawings, but when he designs a house, he designs the factory that's going to design the house. And then when he has theories about behavior, he started with insects in terms of how they behave, went through animals, then he put it to test. He went to the clan and changed them. I'm sure you know that story. That's
Yes.
put it to test, and the clan broke up. So he experimented and put it to test. It's just not some notion, go out there and be ethical and nice and kind. He devised ways of getting to people and changing them. He did the same thing to alcoholics and drug addicts. He changed them, the worst kids in New York City, and changed them. When he went to the sociologist who worked with those kids, he had no idea, and he showed them how it was done. So he tried to approach the American psychology department. When you went and asked to tell them, to explain the approach you had, the American Sociology Department or Psychology Department?
American Psychological Association. I said, I would like to address you on new ways of treating drug addicts and rigid people. And they said, what school did you go to? I said, no school. We're not interested. Is that clear?
Yes.
The Wright brothers never got a hearing. Neither did Louis Pasteur. He was not a doctor, he was a chemist.
Right.
All new ideas come from the outside. And what you have to do is get to the inside. So the inside likes their position of authority, and they don't even know what questions to ask. So they think they're being objective and fair, but they can't because they haven't studied this system. So we suggest that people become familiar with the Venus Project and then say, here's where this won't work. The people that live here can't get into this building. There's no entrance. You give me stuff like that, I'll work with you. But if you say, what do architects think of your city? What do I think of architects? That's more important. They don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. 90%.
You can't judge it. They don't think within a total city systems approach on a global scale because they're trying to find the causes of the problems in society. They are just into one little discipline, building a building.
Yes.
And when they have the problem of building whole city, they just take little buildings and put them together. And they copy old cities, what they think worked in old cities. They don't think of it in terms of a whole total systems approach for creating abundance within a new social design. They can't.
Let me put it another way. You might understand it better. If I always in my book, I say, if you found a planet like the Earth out there, and we can go there, and you have a freedom to design that planet any way you want to. I try to encourage people to design a new social system, a brand new planet, see if you can cut out war, crime, opinions, and how would you go about it? To give people the opportunity to take a brand new planet and lay it out. Well, the kids always draw it like it is today. Their frame of reference is the same. It's like asking an Indian, what do you think of a Learjet? He said, what the hell's a Learjet? What do you think of a cyclotron? They don't know what that is. Architects don't think of new arrangements. They work within the company comes over and says, we'd like you to do a factory in this area. That's where our land is. Well, the architect works on that. He's not an innovator, really. He's not called upon to design a school that's more efficient, more effective. The Board of Education decides that. They have a set of rules. The architect says, how many students? And say 4,308. Then he goes and he writes that down and he makes a building to correspond with what he gets orders for.
Right.
But I say, let me just tell you what really happens. There was a time when Poland believed in the cavalry, horseback.
Yes.
But the Germans believed in war tanks. And so there was a large group of Germans that won out and they slaughtered the Poles because they couldn't conceive of a war tank. Now the war tank people got in America. And the laser people said, we can design a laser beam that'll burn the war tanks. And they fought against laser people. And the laser people finally got in, and the space people said, we can use laser beam in space and burn the soldiers all over the place. And the laser group on the ground fought them. Every group is always there defending their own group.
Right.
You don't have any objectivity. Now, you think scientists are more objective than other people? Here's proof that they're not. When Germany got into power, when it became a powerful nation, some scientists left Germany, but most of them stayed there and made weapons. There were scientists in Italy. They stayed there and made weapons. Scientists in America, scientists in England. If they were scientists, they say, what's going on here? Why is there war? Why can't we bridge the difference? Why do they fall in line with their country? Because they're brought up to be patriotic. They're brought up to be proud of working for Douglas Aircraft, not Hausen Aircraft Company in Germany. They don't give a damn about that. They're just like ordinary people. Scientists get married, have parties, get drunk, just like anybody else. You think a scientist is objective? The nearest thing I met a scientist was Albert Einstein. I said, do you believe in God? He said, which one? And I said, what do you think of the social system? He said, I'm a socialist. I said, how does it work? He says, I've never really gone into it in detail. I don't know. So I talk to a lot of scientists. I've never met a scientist. A scientist to me is a guy that asks pertinent questions. What is cancer? Well, doctors don't know, so they give you chemotherapy. You know what that is? Chemicals.
Yes.
Or they use x-rays and try to burn the cancer. I'm going to try to tell you what I would do. I would take cancer, keep it alive in a petri dish. If a person died, I keep many different types of cancers alive with artificial circulation. Then I treat the cancer, not the patient. And once I control the cancer, speed up cell multiplication, slow it down, they don't even know how to do research today. To do research correctly, you have to ask, what is the problem? Problem of life. It's a problem. What is life? They don't know. The definitions of life do not fit. Spencer said, one manifestation of life is that the body automatically sweats when it gets hot and keeps the body at an even temperature. If it gets cold, it burns more fat. So they thought Spencer had a good definition of life. So an engineer said, hey, my refrigerator does that. When it gets hot, it gets colder. When it gets cold, it gets warmer. So Spencer said, gee, that's a lousy definition. They don't even know how to think about it. When kids go to school, they say, what are you going to major in? Well, I think I'll major in biology. That's not the kind of people we want. We want people, when they were kids, they collected insects and studied them. Not kids that, what do you want to major? I think I'll major in psychology. That's the bullshit world that I'm talking about. There are very few real scientists. I'm sorry about that. I wish it were otherwise.
Listen, I fully agree with all your concepts, your ideas, and your wishes for the future. Since, the masses, the ones that we're trying to change, since they all really believe in this objective science, so-called objective science, by the scientific community, made by those guys, isn't it one of our priorities to try and bridge the gap between the scientific community and the
time of the Wright
in order
brothers,
to verify?
At the time of the Wright brothers, the most acclaimed scientists used to write articles on why man can't fly. The Wright brothers never read that book until they built an airplane. Louis Pasteur was not a doctor, he was a chemist. No real change ever came from an established institution.
They don't usually, hardly ever, back the research in science of really new radical ideas. They don't put money into it until the person does it and shows it to them, a product. They have to develop the product first.
Which you
Generally
have,
the way
right?
it works.
Which you guys have done. You've
No,
done
if
exactly
we
that.
built the city, they might come and like it. But until then, they know nothing about it and they can't really judge it.
So what we need is a new verification system, right?
We
Verify.
present our concepts. And then the scientists will say, what you call a scientist or architect will say, yeah, but
Not
you
what I
forget
did, dude.
human nature. I don't want to get into that. They don't study human behavior. They know nothing about it. And if I talk to psychologists, they don't talk. They say, what school did you go to? And they want to know whether you're a Gestaltist or whether Freudian, Adlerian, Skinnerian. There are different schools of thought in psychology, and they're all divergent. And they get into debates, which I'm against. I'm for dialogue, where you share ideas, not try to win. When you try to win, that's subjective. So I think there should never be debates. It's one school and another. There should be the sharing of ideas, or discredit it. In other words, the person says to me, your wheels are too small on the airplane, you don't have enough wing area, then I can deal with it. But if they say it'll never fly, if they don't ask me how do you propose to lift off the ground without wings, that's the proper way to speak. If you say, somebody says, do you think we'll ever get to the moon? The proper answer is, I don't know. I know nothing about rockets and nothing about space travel. I can't answer that question. But if you hit specifics, I can deal with it.
So is it correct to assume that what you just said is that you don't identify with anybody in the scientific community?
No, I try to work with them. I can tell you what really happened at Douglas Aircraft Company. The guy that hired me said, the first 3 weeks you were there, you made more contributions to aviation than the history of aviation. Then he said to me, I want you to meet the chief aerodynamicist. That's the guy that studies how air flows over airplanes. He introduced me to him, but he told him that I did not agree with all of the Bernoulli principle. Bernoulli principle means that air flowing over the top of an airplane wing creates more lift than the bottom. And I built a unit to discredit that. And he told him that Fresco doesn't agree with the Bernoulli principle. And he came home and says, I don't even want to talk to you if you don't agree with the Bernoulli principle. A scientist would say, what is it that you disagree with? The man he was very famous. His name was Dr. Klein. He was an asshole. Because he would have said to me, what is it that you disagree with? And even if I was young, I was very young at the time, about 18, he was about 45. So he used age, rank, and notoriety. He was famous, well known.
Yes.
I met Norbert Wiener. He wrote the book called Cybernetics. I said, how about a cybernated society? He said, I wouldn't want that. I said, why not? He says, well, when I talk to people about my own concept, they didn't accept it. So I wouldn't want scientists controlling anything. So he had his own little niche. But I never met anybody that was open-minded. That's the word you use. I never met a person that said, how does your system work? Why is it round? What do you do in case of emergency? That'd be a target. If you drop a bomb in the middle, the whole city would be destroyed. I can deal with that. But I can't deal with it'll never work. I don't think I want to live in that thing. I can't deal with that. You have to point out your wing area is too small. Or will the machines take over? They ask questions like that. Machines have no feelings. I think I've discussed that.
We are all for bridging the difference between scientists or any other field or any other discipline. So I would say give it a try. Go to the academicians and present it and see the response. See what you can come up with.
Yes, and the thing is, the problems I predict, I guess, is that they have a very strict means of verification, which they call the scientific method.
I'm dealing with ego, not always scientists. If they were scientists, I'd agree with you. If they said your city won't work, your beams are too small or something,
yes.
I can deal with. I've never met a scientist yet. I met people that call themselves scientists. I don't have to tell you about my experience with scientists.
Are you one? Are you a scientist?
I would say I use a scientific method as
Which
much
is?
as I know how.
What is the scientific method,
The
according to
method
you?
is to try to make materials, if you work in the aircraft industry, lighter, stronger, and then verify it by twisting it and measuring the force required to twist it, bending it, measuring the strength of the materials. And then when you come up with a new material, submit it for test. And if the scientist says, what is that? Say, put it through the test, see if it's lighter, stronger than conventional materials. If it is, I did this in the aircraft company. I designed safety devices for years. And they patent everything. I don't own that. Everything you think of belongs to them. Did you know that? Even if you go home at night and think of an idea, it belongs to Douglas Aircraft Company or Northrop.
Right.
I didn't know that at first. Then I went to a doctor who was a specialist, and he said to me, will you design some instruments, surgical, and for doing this, that, and the other thing? So I suggested something. He said, no, I'd rather go this way. I went his way. Here's what I suggested. You know what a turret head lathe is? It's a lathe machine with drill bits that turn. Instead of changing your drill bit, one drills a hole, the other taps the hole, all on the turret. So the doctor didn't have to say to the nurse, hemostat, retractors. They would turn. and gives the doctor whatever he needs. The doctor didn't get it. So he said, what we do, we'll do it my way. I had to do it his way to live. You understand?
I understand, yeah.
Now, so nobody that a guy came from Paramount Pictures, he said, can you make three-dimension movies without glasses? I said, yes. He said, how do you know you can make it? That's because I use this particular method. I have to have words that have meaning. I can't say, I believe I can. If words have meaning, if a person says, there's not enough kindness in the world, I say, how would you do that? And if I don't know, then shut up. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So if a person comes up to me and says, I've come to help the Venus Project, I said, good. We need new agriculture to grow food twice as fast without exhausting the soil. Have you any suggestions? I said, well, no. I said, we don't want elevators to fall. Have you any suggestions? No.
Nope.
We want spaceships that don't blow up. Any suggestions? No. I said, go back to school and study robotics and study computer program, then come back. I'm not mad at them. They really want to help, but they don't know how. I've never met a scientist yet that said, what is a tailspin? Why do airplanes kill people? What kills people? Mostly fire when the plane crashes. Well, how do you prevent fire in a crash? I don't know. They always, I don't know.
Yes.
So what am I talking to them for? Do you understand what I mean? You want to know about the Venus Project? Ask about the Venus Project. If you want to know whether scientists accept it, they don't even know what it is. So you ask me to go out and win acceptance? No, the word proof about nothing in particular is no question. Say, deal with something that I've submitted and say, can you prove that that is more efficient?
For
Well, if
instance?
you live 10 minutes away from work, or 4 minutes, it's better than an hour. If your community surrounds the industrial district, it's more efficient. And if you say to me, well, here's where it isn't, then I can deal with it. So I don't want to have to, I don't know if you know this, all doctors used to work on autopsies. You know what that is? Work on dead people. Then they'd go and work on a mother that's pregnant. They do surgery and deliver babies. And childhood death was a big thing in the old days. So this doctor tried to tell doctors to wash their hands after they did surgery. So who the hell are you to tell us to wash our hands? So he did surgery on a cadaver, and then he cut his own skin, and he died of childbirth fever, just to show them. And then they began to wash their hands. You can't talk to doctors if they think they're doing the right thing, unless the doctor says, I'm not sure, I don't know. That's a very rare quality in human beings. I'm sorry it's that way. I wish they were objective, scientific. That's only on paper in school books. Alexander Graham Bell, the guy that made the telephone, he used to teach the deaf how to speak. He put a candle in front of them, soup, soup, and the candle would flicker. Other people didn't know how to do that. And one day, he had a gadget with a needle on it. And when he vibrated it, the needle vibrated, and he got a voice recording. Accidentally discovered it. And he made the telephone. He was not an electrical engineer. He was a phoneticist, taught language to people. And I'm sorry it's that way. I wish that scientists always came up with great ideas. They're not really scientists to me, yet. Maybe in the future they will be generalists, or they know many different things and they know what questions to ask. So when you say, well, who the hell are you to say that dancing has no meaning, or earrings are nothing? I'm just telling you that earrings don't improve a person's hearing. They don't put them in touch with the world. But I know that in the future you'll wear a ring. And if you're hurt in an accident, when they bring you in to a hospital, that ring will make all your records come up. The doctor doesn't say, what bothers you? Where's the pain? He gets all those records immediately. I don't want a guy that says, well, yeah, well, where does it hurt? How long have you had that? All your records would come out right away so he knows who the hell you are. He doesn't think that way. And when I told the doctor about memory metals, he said, "You're dreaming." Instead of saying, "Where can I get proof of this?" I'm sorry about that. I wish they did say, "Have you got proof of that?"
To put it shortly, what is your greatest concern regarding the transition from the monetary system to the resource-based economy?
That some of the countries like North Korea and China might use an atom bomb or a hydrogen bomb. That's my greatest concern. We don't have much time left, and nations are building weapons continuously, spending lots of money, using the best brains in the world, like the field scientists, making weapons of mass destruction. And I know what the weapons are. And I know that U.S. has 300 submarines. Each one has more destructive power than all the wars in history. I'm afraid of that. Time is running out. I don't know if I can get the people on this world cruise. I'm doing my darndest to get this information out there. I need your help. That's my major worry. We may not have the time. And then I ask you to get hold of a newspaper in England called The Telegraph. How many years ago was that?
2002, 8 years ago.
How long?
8 years ago.
8 years ago, they ran the headline, U.S. intends to bomb 7 countries, nuclear bomb. And it names North Korea, China, Russia, and that's why they're building atom bombs. You didn't know that? But the U.S. is so stupid that even if they intended to attack, they shouldn't have released that. So North Korea is afraid of the U.S., so they're building nuclear weapons so that if you touch me, I'll touch you. Same with China. So they're afraid of us. Why? They have a good reason to be. U.S. said, we will sneak attack 7 countries. Get it. It's in the Telegraph, London.
It's official now, they're planning to go
I think
in
they're very
Iran as
stupid
well
people.
now. Just hearing about that. Yes.
Wow, he's
And
right.
I think that the Pentagon, top military men, are very ignorant people. Because I'm going to tell you something, I wouldn't do this, but they x-ray your bags when you get on an airplane. I could design a sports show that gives off poison gas, won't show up on x-ray, or I wouldn't do that. You get on an airplane, kill everybody. Whatever you think of, somebody can think of a countermeasure. There's no security. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're assuming another person doesn't have an air force. So they hijacked an airplane, fly him into the towers. What happened to all the money we spent on radar and defense when they flew into the towers? We gave the Army whatever the hell they wanted at Pearl Harbor. And 2 soldiers said, there's a whole flight of airplanes coming over. And he went and told it to a captain. The captain said, it's probably our plane. It was the Japs coming to attack Pearl Harbor. So the captain said, wouldn't worry about it if I were you. Well, what the hell are you doing there? What is national defense? How can you defend your country against that kind of stupidity? We don't want people with radar and television. We want machines that can detect an airplane, whether it's ours or other, and missiles go out automatically if they're coming to attack. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to leave it in the hands of top military people. I've always found military people to be extremely stupid. I can give you a description if you want, but I'd rather answer your questions.
Very brief. Who will inherit the Venus project after you guys?
After me and you.
All right, that's it. I'm looking forward to the other questions.
Okay, when I discuss this whole thing with a friend, he always gets me with the argument, I don't know what to say. He says that this is about human behavior, that people, when everything is done by machines, then who will, for example, repair the machine? And will people not stop wanting to contribute if everything is free?
I couldn't hear that.
Who will repair the machines?
Okay.
What's your other question?
What kind of machines? Electrical? Mechanical?
Any. Just can you build machines that?
I think I told some of you about the Navy's experiments with high voltage wires. They ran high voltage, the Navy was like 35 years ago. And the voltage was so high, it pushed hairs out of the wires, little whiskers. The electrons move things out of the wire. That's called an electrical field around the wire. The Navy shaved off those hairs and turned them in this direction and made a wire of it. And while the electronic system was working, they cut the wire. But the voltage forced them back together again. It's called self-healing circuits. So we think we can work on, the labs of the future will work on self-repairing circuits. So you don't need anybody to repair things. Like if you take a bunch of magnets and they're facing a center of a circle, and the shaft in the middle is floating in a magnetic field, you never need to lubricate, and there's never any wear. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want to talk to a guy says, gee, I'll take a patent out on that, John. That's a good idea. That's what they've been doing all along. So how we just solve this, and I tell them, and they take patents out of it. So I've lost thousands of inventions. I don't mind that. I don't mind if they copy it. But I find that when I worked for the aircraft factory, they roped off my table, and all I did was creative work. But the engineers used to make fun of me. Can you understand that? Who is this guy, Fresco? The same with the principal. He said, Jock, I'm going to buy you whatever books you want. You read what you want. Just report to me once a week. Tell me why you're reading that book. That went on for a year and a half. Then he died. They cut that privilege out, so I played hooky. I never went back to school. Well, I played hooky for 6 weeks. The truant officer was sitting on my doorstep. He's the guy that gets kids to go back to school. He said, what do you do when you're not in school? I go to the library and read what I want to read. So he said, are you into drugs or anything? I said, no. Is he in with marijuana groups or gangs? No. What do you do at home? I have a lab. Can I see it? Only if you don't tell my mother who you are. My mother wouldn't understand that. I looked at my mother as a peasant and my father as children. You understand? They meant well, yes, but they didn't know anything. So my father never understood why I kept looking at airplanes and checking the wing angle. He said, you look once, you look twice, you look all day long. What do you look at? He didn't know. He was an agronomist. So I said to him, what would happen if I grafted a pear on an apple tree? He went, stupid. So he was not experimental. So I grafted a pear on an apple tree, and it grew. And he said, he scratched his head, he was confused. You understand what I mean? A lot of people don't step out of the mold. They stay within it, it's much safer. If you begin to tell kids, what the hell are you playing baseball for? Where does that go? If you study science or disease of plants, that'd be useful. You know? And they say, well, what the hell's the matter with you? In other words, you're going to be rejected if you step out of the mold. So I didn't remain in the mold. I stepped out. But then, after I made a lot of inventions, then I was invited to speak at schools. I was not invited to speak at universities. Can you understand that? Well, who the hell is he? You never heard of that guy. Now, I understand that too. I understand why they do it. Because rich people give funds to universities. If I attack the banks and the establishment, why should they want me to speak at school? And when I said the profession you're studying will be phased out in the next 3 years, I get letters from guys saying I'm studying robotics now instead of business administration.
That's good.
I don't want them to study business administration or banking. That's shafting the public. You understand? But if I get to them, they reverse their course. We got, or she's got, hundreds of letters saying I was going to kill myself until I found the Venus Project. It gave me something to work toward. She can tell you about all that.
So-
We get letters like that all the time. I don't want to talk to the establishment unless they come to me and say, what is the Venus Project? And that's what's happening now. Universities all over the world, broadcasting companies, if you call them. But if you just call them and say, what is the Venus? They won't do anything. But if you say 50 million people, according to Peter Joseph, all over the world now know about the Venus, they want to get in on it.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So you have to pitch them. Because I'm tired of listening to military people on CNN. All you get is military people and establishment talking. You don't have any outsiders talking about how to stop the war, how to bridge the difference between nations. To say, who the hell are you? You know,
So,
nothing I
The other question was about incentive. So he had another question about what would the incentive be without money?
Who asked that? Okay. Why did Martin Luther King march into the South? Nobody put 50,000 bucks in his account in Switzerland. Why did Gandhi march free of charge to free India from England? There are many people that do wonderful things without money. Anybody that works for money, I'm very suspicious of. If a guy says, I just got just the car you're looking for, he's a salesman. He doesn't say to me, I work for Amalgamated Auto Distributors, but if you go 2 blocks down, you get the same car for 15,000 less. He doesn't do that. He couldn't work for a company if he did that. Then, when I worked for the aircraft company, they said, we can deposit money for you in a Swiss bank if you go to Lockheed, you get a job there, and tell us what they're working on. They're called industrial spies. You ever hear of them?
Yes.
Big corporations send people to other companies to try to find out what they're working on. So when you say, what are you going to do with the criminals? What's a criminal? Maybe everybody's criminal.
What is this for?
If you own an invention that would help the world, but you got a patent on it, you're depriving people of something wonderful. If you understand what I'm saying, yes.
Is it okay if I have another question?
I have a question also afterwards.
Then, you're saying that even though we now still live in the world with a monetary economy, you say studying that, because I'm about to study exactly that, is simply pointless and a waste of time, and it would make much more sense for my life to change direction to something that is practically applicable and
You're saying you're going to study economics, is that
Yeah.
right, or banking,
economics.
or business? He's asking if studying business isn't applicable, would it be better to study something else?
Yes, of course. Anything.
That's a given, come on.
Engineering, medicine, anything real. Business does nothing for people.
It doesn't contribute to people's lives.
Lawyer, for
The
example.
opposite is the case, actually. And you're saying it's kind of, that's what you said in the lecture, I understood like that it is an industry that lives on the backs of others.
Right, they produce nothing.
Parasitic, yeah.
Parasitic.
They produce nothing. They produce nothing.
They manipulate money for their own gain and put other people in debt.
They specify as competition.
I would take bankers and send them to school to be cardiologists, work on heart disease or something useful. But working in a bank produces nothing for people except debt.
But if there is another person with another heart, another mind, you can do something else in the business world, can't you?
Like what?
Just to inspire, to use them in a good way.
We would tell them-
I don't know.
We would tell them, we don't know what makes cancer. Do you want to work on that? No. He says, I want to just make pottery. I said, we don't have a job for you. Okay? There are real problems in the world. Hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes. Can you do anything to minimize the death effect of hurricanes? Thousands of people die. Okay? There are real problems in the world. Hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes. Can you do anything to minimize the death effect of hurricanes? Thousands of people die. So I'm going to tell you a little thing about the tsunamis, waves that kill people. Okay? Here's an island. When the tsunami comes, everybody drowns. So sometimes they try to build a wall here. If you put a wedge out 1 mile away from the island, it'll split the tsunami so you don't need to build this long wall. A little, not little, but a concrete wedge will part the water so the main force does not drown thousands of people. What do you suggest? I don't know. They never come up with anything. You always ask them, what do you suggest so we don't have war? Try it. You'll get no answers. I asked once a congressman, how would you prevent poverty, hunger? I don't know. They're sincere, they don't know. What are you doing in government? Well, the guy was somebody there.
I just want to expand on that incentive issue too that your friend brought up. He's saying if you don't work for money, then people wouldn't do things. But I know a lot of very wealthy people, and if that was the case, then they wouldn't be doing anything. But they tell us that they don't have enough time in the day to do everything that they want to do. And in the future, within a resource-based economy, the incentive would be no work, no poverty, no hunger, no crime. People would be working on things and devising things that can immediately go into society and make people's lives better, and they can see it, they can benefit from it directly, immediately. So the standard of living would go up very, very quickly when people can do that. That gives a lot of incentive to people. The kids are always inquisitive until we kill them with the schooling. So the thing that kills incentive tremendously is minimum wage. You want to kill incentive? Make a dishwasher. Kills incentive. Have you ever worked as a dishwasher? The dishes are continuously coming in all the time. There's never any let up with it. And then they give you minimum wage. You go home and your wife can't buy a new dress. You can't take your kids for medical care. You can't send them to good schools. And you're continuously doing dishes. That can flatten a person really quickly. You don't have enough money to buy a new car. And old cars break down much faster.
Also, you could say that the system is sort of a forced incentive because you have to make money in order to survive.
Yeah.
So you're taking away that natural incentive that we all have. You know, that's what kids have. They're curious. They want to learn. It's a matter of what we give them and how they develop from there. So yeah, we all have that natural incentive to feel like a part of society. That's what drives us. We want to have that sort of a feeling of acceptance and being a part of something. And that's been twisted within the system because it's been turned into a really detrimental thing that doesn't do anything. It doesn't help us. It doesn't get us anywhere. So the incentive, we were born with that. It's just a matter of direction, directing it.
He's asking how do
That's
you
what we have to find
restore the damaged environments?
Okay. First of all, I'm not interested in restoring damaged environment. First, I'm interested in bringing the nations together. If they agree, sharing ideas, and if you just repair the environment, they'll go right on with what they're doing. So I'm not interested in anything like making automobiles all electric, because if they go to war, they'll destroy them. If you just build a new city without changing people, they'll be bombing each other. So I'm more interested in people, the way they think, and get them to think in terms of restoring the environment, rebuilding the reefs, and get them to want to join together. Now, the nations that join together, say, might be 10. A lot of nations will not join, but they don't get a piece of the action. The nations that join together share ideas and resources. The nations don't are on their own. So, if you want to live in a wooden house instead of fireproof house, if it catches fire, it's your problem, not ours. If you're a member of the Catholic Church and you say to people, go forth and multiply, the Lord will provide. If he doesn't, do you really believe that? Because, yeah, sign here. that if the Lord doesn't provide, you will. If you get their signature, you're all right. So all we do is ask people to back up their beliefs. Now, there'll be people that don't want to live in the Venus Project. They're called Amish, and they'll have their own community. They think they can build, a lot of people believe this, they can build a community for sustainability. Just like, say, 5,000 people will build a community with rich soil and everything, and glass buildings to grow food, solar cells. If you do that, when the system dies, the minorities will be out of work and they'll kill you and take your land away. You can't live to yourself anymore. Those days are gone. You must learn to live together and share the earth's resources. Anything less than that, from my point, will not work. So I work on getting nations interested. They say, what can we do to help? Well, we need land. We were offered land in different parts of the world, but we also need concrete. We need grants. You know what that means? We need grant writers. You know what that? There are people that specialize in writing grants. We can't do it with a lot of people that love the Venus Project that have no money. So we have to approach grant writers and get them to write to General Motors, everybody that's got money that wants to build sustainable community. So we use the guise of sustainable community, safe automobiles, houses that go together faster and last longer. You can get money from many foundations. Just build those units, build the first city called sustainable, whatever you want to call it. Then invite people to come there and look at it. Would you want to live in that? Yes, sign me up for the next city. The first city will be the planners, people that work on design. The second city, we will level the old cities. Here's something you don't know. Nobody owns anything in the Venus Project. You can live in a house that meets your needs as long as you like. And you can move to Alaska, or you can move to cities in the sea and live there for 4 years. That's up to you. You don't own anything. There are hundreds of sailboats for your use. You don't have to fill out any forms or get along with Fresco. You just take your family out sailing. If you don't know how to sail, there are teachers teach you how to do that. So all the nations sit around a big plastic bubble, 40 feet in diameter, and the new city is proposed. And China says, where's the recreation area? And it occurs. And Sweden says, is there a place for skiing? And it occurs. So all the nations participate in the design of the major cities. But they don't participate unless they have something to say, like instead of saying, who's going to work the schools, that's a question. And we show them how the schools work, how the new teaching system moves in. But you can't do that with ordinary people. You can't take their children away, because it's the parents that spoil their children. They say you're Lutheran, you don't play with that Catholic, or you're Jewish, you don't play with that Italian, you know. Parents allows kids up. So we have to get the kids away from parents without hurting them. So we have a film called Summer Camp. And everybody sends their kids to summer camp. When we get the kids there, we say your parents have grown up in India and they are scarcity oriented and this is their value system. Try to talk to your parents. If you can't reach them, let go. Don't hurt them. Don't call them names. Because they mean well. They're doing whatever they know. But we can't take the kids away from parents. If you do that, if you try to stop religion, it'll go underground. But point out to ministers how far we've gone from the teachings of Christ. I'm not religious. You know, I'm an atheist at all. I don't believe in gods, demons, devils, any of that. But I know there's millions of religious people. And if you attack them, you're going to delay the Venus Project. So don't attack them. Just say, let's see if we can put it into practice and build a world where the brotherhood of man. That's all they're interested in. And you have to show them where they fail. Which it says in the Bible, judge not lest you be judged. That means don't do jury duty. Don't judge other people. And it says, love thine enemy. Do unto others, you have others do unto you. Say to God, do you believe in God? Do you believe in these commandments? He said, well, you've got to be realistic in this world. And say, don't give me that shit then about you're a Catholic or you're a Protestant. You're not. You're an opportunist. You have to shame them in front of their congregation. Now, this is what Jesus wants, the Venus Project, because there's nobody fat and rich and abuses other people or sets up a gossip column. There's nothing like that.
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
That's what
Ain't
Jesus
no
said.
banks.
Yes.
Sure thing.
So you use religion to turn them around.
Verifying what you said, that you call the wealthy people who make billions on war, put it towards something else.
Right.
Well, what I would do, first of all, if what I see happening all over the world is falling apart, the money system is falling apart. And it's the first time the United States has been at war, and it didn't pull them out. War always pulled a country out. The Great Depression in America, when the banks failed, we got orders for new airplanes to fight Germany, Italy, and Spain. You understand? And Japan. So the money was given to the aircraft factories and everybody went back to work. Now the aircraft factories are turning out airplanes, warships, submarines, and we still have unemployment. Well, it's not working. And Obama bailed them out. That's not going to work anymore. So it's happening all over the world. That's why Turkey asked me to come there to talk about the Venus Project. And we went to Dubai and many other countries. They want us to come and talk about the Venus Project. Will it work? I don't know. It depends on what other people do. Roxanne and I have no power. When you leave here, if you don't talk to people, nothing will happen, I can assure you. If a person says it'll never work, well, show me where it won't work. Ask them, because we're interested. If you can find out what's the matter with it, where it won't work, do it. Yes.
I would like to hear your thoughts on politics, because Peter, he made the film and in it he talked about how we cannot use the political system. And I know that he's talking about the American political system. And the way I see it, I try to think about, okay, what can we do here? What resources do we have that we can use? Also, of course, we have to use the monetary system in some ways.
You want to know what you can do here?
Yeah.
He's talking about in relation to politics.
Yeah.
Peter said, don't
Because, the way I hear it,
Get all the grant money you can get and go ahead and start building sustainable houses. I'll give you the blueprints when you're ready.
He's talking about doing it through political means.
because Peter, he
In
emphasizes.
Europe, it's different.
I don't care what you call it. Call it a political party. Do whatever you have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we don't have money, grant wealthy people do in banks, and we have to have money to build a city. If you don't cater, if you say you want to build sustainable housing, new agriculture, study hydroponics to grow more food for sustainability. And if you can't get grants that way, then if you have 40 million people that like the Venus Project, ask them to chip in $1 a piece. Otherwise, whatever the hell they can. Otherwise, it'll never happen.
So,
Roxanne and I worked for 30 years using our own money on the Venus Project. Nobody backed it. And so we put up 10 buildings with our own money. Now that we're there, Peter Joseph says it's not fair for you and Roxanne to back up everything. We need funding. You can't do it without funding. If you talk to 10 million people, they all love the Venus Project. If they don't put out effort or funding, they are verbalists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Puts
you
it on
do
their back.
whatever you can to gain funds.
Yeah.
Now,
And
if you say this to industrialists, say, trying to get a film showing automation from our friend, what's his name, in England.
Andrew Buxton, you're talking about? On our,
Yes.
on our website?
Yeah, it is Andrew. Yeah.
He's
Andrew
making a
Buxton.
film called Automation,
He's got
and
it
what
up
it's
there.
like today. You have to show that film to people
Doug Mallet
and
has
say, what
some-
does that mean? It means that 4 years from now, most industry will automate, and you'll be out of work. Now, when that happens, forget about the Venus Project. If industry goes more and more to automation, if they don't understand that, tell them to go to their supermarket. You will see a new machine where the cashier doesn't do anything. You run your card through. You'll have to show them
Yeah.
how people eventually will not have purchasing power
In
if
Denmark,
they automate.
in Denmark, actually, the supermarkets just started eliminating the cashier totally because the people are just taking
You have to show
goods
them
to a scanner.
that there are trains here, I'm told, that have no pilot, no conductor.
You wrote on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's happening all over the world. If that keeps happening, who can buy vacuum cleaners in houses if people get laid off? Well, I can see machines doing the job of architects and attorneys, because an attorney works in the handbook. He looks up things, cases, and we can computerize a laptop to be your legal advisor. Just like you can get any information you want on your laptop, memory metals, new surgical practices, all over the world. That means we can replicate an attorney. The automobile factories used to have 3,000 people working there. Now they got 25 people. Tomorrow it'll be 20, and then down with people out. Now when you put in automation, you don't need air conditioning. Guys don't goof off, smoke in the bathroom. You need no parking lot. You don't need insurance for the working people. Do you understand? You make your ceiling lower, it costs less to heat. So it's much cheaper to automate.
Yeah, about goods and services, how do you decide what goods and services will be produced in the system
How
that
do you decide
propose?
what goods and services will be produced?
Okay. If you live in Florida, you don't need winter underwear. It depends on where people live. If 4,000 people live in Arizona, that's the kind of clothing you have to supply. If you have a ship company and you've got 5,000 passengers, that tells you how many cooks you need, how much water you need for showers and baths. You can get that statistic. No ship company says, I think I'll put 4 gallons in. They do a statistical study. They don't. If you have an airplane that carries 400 passengers, that tells you how much food you need, how much water you need. Nobody says, well, if you ask me, I'll think I'll put in 4 gallons of water.
Well, I was thinking more along.
Statistical mechanics
Yeah.
decides what we do, not Fresco. In other words, if you have a state with 40,000 people in it, but the state has enough land to feed 20,000, you'll have to move most of them out of that state. It has to be, everything has to be in accordance with the carrying capacity of the environment. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
That means no one makes decisions except the survey committee. The survey committee doesn't make decisions, but tells you what we have and what we don't have.
I was thinking more about personal preferences. When you like, let's say you like.
Personal preference?
Yeah, I think I can
Well,
answer that.
If you live in the Venus Project cities, you have like 4,000 options to choose from. If you live on your own, you have 7 options. So most
You'll
people
get
will
feedback.
want to live in the city.
You'll get
You can take flying lessons if you live in the city. You can study medicine, go back to school, concert halls. There are exhibits every week like a World's Fair. The city is enormously advantageous. If you don't live in the city, you have to drive to the grocery store that way. You have to take your kids to the child care center. Then you have to go to the dentist that way. You'll be wasting a lot of your time. When you live in the city, there's everything in the middle of the city. Dentists, schools, everything you need.
You mean
So
like
there's nothing
what-
in it to hurt you.
Yeah, I think he means like how can we decide what one person needs if another person wants something else, right?
Yeah,
You mean like, yeah. But I
When-
think the way we could handle that would be like everyone could just give feedback of what they want, and then you could have statistics that way.
That's what he's saying.
So yeah,
Well, most people will not want the same thing.
yeah,
They
exactly.
want different
So
things.
you can have
Somebody said,
statistics
what are you going to do if
on-
everybody wants to live in Florida? Everybody doesn't want to live in Florida. Some people love a change of season. They like skiing, ice skating. That's why people live wherever the hell they want to live. But when a person brings that up, they've been misinformed that everybody wants to live in the Bahamas. It's not true. Some people hate Florida.
I like it too.
They hate the heat.
I don't like the heat.
So in reality, not everybody wants a Volkswagen either.
A vulture.
So people think that what if everybody, what if two guys are in love with the same girl? In this system, you're going to have trouble. In the Venus Project, we don't. Because if a girl comes to me and says she was rejected by her boyfriend, she comes crying. She was rejected by her boyfriend. And she feels terrible. So I said, did you ever reject a guy? She says, about 6, 7 times. Did you ever think of the guy? So if people reject you, it doesn't mean you're bad. It means you don't meet their needs. Some men like a fat ass, some like big tits, some like small tits, blonde hair, red hair. So all these guys are different. So if a guy marries a girl because she's competent mentally, but she has small tits, he's always looking at big tits because he was brought up that way. Do you know what I mean? Don't get mad at the guy. That's the way he was brought up. If you understand that, you can understand he's always looking. But I told you before, on the South Seas, men never looked at a girl's body. Did I tell that to you?
Yes.
Not
Maybe.
because they're good or bad. They were brought up nude, so they don't collect pictures of nude women.
It's not interesting.
You can't
We got-
give a picture of a
we
nude
got time for one
woman.
more.
Food is very important, and then energy. With energy, you can dissolve the water. So here you have 3. And then with energy, you can create houses.
Yes.
And then education is just the books.
You want to know our sources of energy?
What do you suggest? If yeah.
There's a temperature differential, you know what I mean? That
That's
the upper region of the oceans are warm,
Yes.
there's ice water down below. The temperature difference can generate electricity.
Yes.
Wave power can generate electricity. The tidal flow in and out, the rivers fill up, and they empty. So you put turbines under the water. Then there's a Japanese current, the Icelandic current, the Gulf Stream. There are many ocean currents under the water, which you can tap for energy. Then there's geothermal. That alone will give you enough energy for the next many thousands of years. There's no shortage.
How about using the magnetic current? Magnetic, because the Earth is a magnet, as you mentioned,
Yes.
to the.
There's other possibilities. There's no shortage of
Well, what do
energy.
you suggest? Because I'm into magnets.
Geothermal is the most abundant. Take a lot of solar panels to heat a house, but in Canada, they have what they call permafrost. 6 feet under to 10 feet underground, it's ice all the time. So you run piping up the bank, and in the summer, you air condition the building by the permafrost. You don't need to use energy. And then there's heat concentrators, big bowl that can focus heat. And you know what a Fresnel lens is? It's a flat magnifying glass. A magnifying glass, if you cut it in half, it looks like that. And then you take a 3 by 3 feet Fresnel lens, gives you 2,000 degrees of heat right here. And that's transferred in the oven. And the oven is insulated. So if the sun doesn't come out for a week, you have a hot oven. All you do is put food in. So we don't use any energy. No taxation. Medical care, doctors work 3 or 4 hours a day unless they want to work more. That's up to the doctor. So we have ways of heating, cooling without electric bills. But the electric companies wouldn't like it.
Oh, because of aerogel.
I don't know if I told you about the pots. Say,
Yeah.
the pots all have a dimple in the middle, and that's where the heating element is. It only goes through the soup, not all around the pot. The electric companies would hate those ovens. Do you understand
They don't
that?
get
You have a
ready.
pinnacle sticking up in the middle of the coffee pot, so the heat only goes through the coffee, not the whole range on the bottom,
Yeah.
with heat going all
And
around.
better yet,
Heat
So-
will let us know.
We can use the energy system we have today and produce an abundance, just that alone. There's no shortage of anything. Now, you got all these separate factories that make vacuum cleaners. We have if it's at sea level, it's 15 pounds per square foot of air. If you increase the air pressure in the house to say 17 or 18 pounds, no dust comes in. So if you run your finger on, no dust comes in. So we just have a slight increase in air pressure. No fumes
But
come
how
in
can you
from
have that?
automobiles or
You
anything else.
can't have windows open.
And it's cheap.
You won't need it. You won't need. You're pulling in cold, nice, clean air, and overpressurize your house. You won't need to have windows open.
But then
You're there and there.
you can't just open the door, you need to have like two-way doors. Like
No, there's no problem. Ships, airplanes, a lot of things are doing this today. It's not a problem. Gardeneria, not sure what the English word for it. What is that?
And you can still open the door without the pressure.
Big greenhouses.
Greenhouses, yeah.
Big greenhouses. They are overpressurized. And when they open the door, they just lose the pressure for a split second. When
Yeah,
they close
yeah.
the door again, it builds up. It's not a problem.
Airplanes are all pressure.
Right.
But what they don't have is what we call it's a laminated plate called ozone generator. All the cold germs go through it and they're killed. It goes through ultraviolet light and precipitators. So the air in the airplane is circulated. So if a guy is coughing, everybody in the airplane gets sick. It'll go through these germicidal lamps that can kill germs 3 microns in size. So it's safer to travel on an airplane than in the country.
A system that we are using today also on ships to desalt water and to make the all the bacteria go away in the water.
Yeah.
UV light,
There's no
no
problem.
problem in it.
What we have to do is teach people how to think the new way so everybody becomes an inventor.
Yeah.
Everybody can add to the well-being of the country.
I was thinking, you must have so many ideas during your life, but there must be some ideas that you have that are not patented and that are not used.
Hundreds and
So,
hundreds of them.
yeah, so haven't you thought about actually making a company that could,
Jacques started.
you know,
and
draw
when he
some
was-
money for funding?
Jacques started when he was very young making products. What happens is they put them on the shelf because they didn't want to compete. They were all tooled up, and it would have put them out of business a lot of times. Or inventors, just because they have a new product doesn't mean it'll go out there and do well. There are so many things working against it. You have to
Yeah,
have.
but I mean like a good product.
The problem
They're
is
all
that
good products. It doesn't mean, there are many, many inventors that have so many different products that can't get them out. Because the marketplace is very difficult a lot of times. You have to
What
have a
do you
good
have?
marketer, you have to have a lot of money. So we decided instead of patenting all these things, because it's very expensive even just to patent, that we would make books and videos to describe this social direction. Because it's no guarantee that even if you had a better house,
But I
you
mean,
started
there's
that way, that
so
you'll
many
make
people
money.
who would like to help, so you don't have to spend any time on it.
We're more interested in getting the
Become a
social
business,
direction
it
out.
doesn't-
Yeah, me too, but I know that we need money to start things and to buy things to get started.
I will give you the blueprint for prefabricated houses. As soon as you get a certain amount of any country, not just you, any country, and the city designs and everything will be made available.
Yeah.
We have a lot of architects now joining the organization, and they're working on 3 views of the city's construction techniques. But it's a little early for that. The first thing is to convince people that they want that. And then if they say, we're ready to go, we've collected 50 million for the first city. We'll build it any place, China, France, England, but it will be owned by the Venus Project until we get people from all over the world to come and look at it and say, we'd like to live that way. Here's something I didn't tell you. It would take 10 years to change everything on earth. 10 years, not 1,000 years. Not the way it's done today, by hand. Or
When Peter first met us and came over, he would come over every few weeks and sit and talk with Jacques for hours. And then he'd say, well, we need another film. After the last film, he wasn't going to do any more films, and he found out very soon that we need another film. And he said, because people didn't understand this direction too well, and he said, well, who is it that can verify this direction? What professionals can I go to, say, in sociology, or who can verify your conclusions in terms of environment shaping behavior? And there wasn't anybody, because that's not where the discipline is today. The discipline is to back up what this system is. This discipline's out there, and the way you go to, and what you go to school to be, and what you learn, all backs up to maintain this system as it is. The values they give you, the schooling they give you, doesn't enable you to think outside of what they tell you in terms of communal life is bad, centralized government is really not the way to go. Watch out for communism, socialism, whatever. They apply any new things for socialism. So the sociologists that may say, well, like there are some sociologists that he found, a couple of them that say, well, the environment shapes behavior. Like he found somebody working on drug addicts and alcoholics. It's very clear that the environment that they were raised in was very detrimental to them, and their overall common denominator was that they had abuse in their early life. But they don't extrapolate that out in terms of what's detrimental in the entire city, what's the cause of that.
They can't yet.
And then
they don't have the evidence
for how to. Well, they haven't looked for the evidence. The evidence is out there, but they haven't looked in that direction.